Hello everyone and welcome back to the stream. I hope you guys have been having a wonderful week and a wonderful day. Also, hello Kay, hello Froggy, and hello Doc. Thank you so much for the resub, Doc. 11 whole months. Honestly, that passage of time, I say this every single time we resub, but I don't know, it's so wild to me. Also, Kay, I had no idea that Twitch had elevated messages now until I saw that pop up, and I'm like, what even is this? But thank you so much. I feel like they sprung that on us. I don't know, I don't read my emails, but I don't know what that is, but it kind of feels like how the donations work on YouTube for live streaming. So I don't know. But it was kind of wild to find out. Good, say it every month. I literally, I don't know where the time goes. Literally came out a few hours ago. Oh, did it? That's so interesting. Honestly, I've spent the last couple of days looking at hurricane news because I have a few friends that live in Florida currently, so I've not been keeping up with Twitch news. But anyway, today, as you guys can see from the title and everything, today we are doing like a PowerPoint party type of stream. But it's gonna be a little less unhinged PowerPoint parties and more, we're all just gonna info dump about stuff that we like, I think was the vibe. I told my friends that I would be presenting on the entirety of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and to just do whatever they wanted. So we'll see. I only know that Shadow might be doing something about Steven Universe, and Keegan might give Shadow a B presentation to do as well. I have no idea what Kay has prepared. So we're gonna be very much winging it. So I'm very excited to see what our friends have got for us. Valid, hope your friends are okay. Yeah, Libby's in Orlando, and she's good. So that was good. And the rest of my friends that live in Florida, they haven't said anything about the hurricane, but I have seen them online, so I think they're fine. Less unhinged. We love to see it. My cat says, hi, it won't leave me alone, so it's watching you. Hello, Froggy's cat. I always love, my favorite thing in other people's streams is when I see people in the chat, like, my pet is watching you, or like, my toddler or baby, child, or nephew, or whatever is watching you. I always love that. It's so funny to me. Gizmo, hello! I literally, right after you sent that in chat, I saw you pop up in the Discord, or maybe it was the other way around. But anyway, we do have a few of our friends waiting for us in the Discord, and I'm probably gonna have to balance a little bit of my sound. So, I'm just gonna go ahead and turn Spotify down a hair and undeafen so we can get that figured out. She bite me, oh no! Hello.
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 How are you guys?
Good. Ready for PowerPoint night?
Nice, nice.
I'm ready to be educated on all of your topics.
Same. I think for the first time in my life ever, the sound is actually balanced.
Ooh.
That's
Maybe.
good.
I might be a tad bit loud because I messed with some of my mic settings earlier.
It's a rare day.
Twitch is telling me that I can now elevate a message
Yes.
to a channel.
Yeah, Kay did that. I was like, huh, interesting. I think there might be competing with YouTube streaming, weirdly
And
enough.
I didn't think that it was gonna say how much money I spent on it. I was like, what the hell?
That's just like the YouTube donation thingy. I've seen it in, like, B-dub streams and stuff, so I guess
I'm not allowed to make this purchase. Okay.
Okay.
not Shadow being
Was it the word
banned.
I chose?
Oh no.
I said PP.
I can't believe
It's
Twitch
banned.
is being homophobic.
Oh, see, now it's telling me invalid payment method, so I guess I can't say PP.
Oh no.
What the
But I
fuck?
can now, if I change what I'm saying, I can just update my card and pay for it.
That is so wild. Anyway. Was Kay gonna present first?
Yes, sorry. I muted my mic so you guys didn't hear me typing
Oh, no, you're good.
in chat. But yes, I can present first. Hold on, let me bring it up.
Okay, I gotta figure out how to...
share it.
I think I can just screen share it from the Discord, but I've gotta time it right so that I don't just dox the entire, general chat.
The entire server docs.
Literally.
Okay. We're gonna share the screen. Okay.
I know Doc was joking
Oh.
about Kay doing the $100 one, but I've seen people do, like, $100 ones in, YouTube streams. People
That is
do
so-
that.
Mhm.
Thanks so much. So I did not realize that we were info dumping. I could have info dumped on literally anything. I decided not to do that apparently.
You are all good. Honestly, I was telling, like, Gizmo and everyone, like, if y'all wanna do this again sometime, I can come up with something else, too.
Yes, I will I'll info dump next time.
I was having real trouble thinking about what to do, and then Blaze and I were talking, and we came up with 3 things I could easily do, and I just completely forgot to put anything together.
Honestly, what I've got put together, I put it together for class in 2019.
Amazing.
So, I have not done anything for this stream within the last year.
Mine's an old PowerPoint that I revamped just for this.
We love that. Okay, I think I've got it pulled up on stream now, so whenever y'all are ready.
Amazing. Okay. Alright, so I did my PowerPoint on cars that feel gay because I thought that would be funny. I'm always constantly driving down the street and like that's a kind of fruity car. It's like a little bit fruity. So first on the list is 2021 Toyota 4Runners, but only the 2021 model. The
That's
other
fair.
models are like just like very heterosexual for no reason. but the 2021 model I feel like is a lot gayer than the rest of them.
I see that.
Thank you. I'm glad that I'm being validated here. The next one is Kia Souls. I mean, you can't have mascots like this and it not be a fucking gay car.
I mean, I did watch a whole video essay about how furries were gays, so this is just correct.
See? Exactly. It's the car for the furries. I agree.
It's
But-
also on this slide that Doc's Fruity Cars Let's Go message came through in the chat.
Yes.
I'm considering that extra validation for the Kia Souls.
For sure, for sure.
The next one is Black Corvettes, but only the black ones, because it's giving like very femme fatale vibes.
It's for the lesbians.
I see
Yeah,
it.
exactly. For all the lesbians. This is a dream car of mine. I would love to drive this. Don't know where I would drive it, but I would love to drive one
Fair, fair.
at some point. Next is Mini Coopers. I mean, has anyone that's not gay driven a Mini Cooper?
I have met exactly one person who's driven a Mini Cooper, and they were in fact gay.
I've also met
Amazing.
exactly one person who's driven a Mini Cooper, and they were also gay. So I think
Hello,
my point
Alejobia.
stands.
Hello,
All
Alejo.
Mini Cooper drivers.
I'm
gay.
assuming it's Alejo, I don't know,
And if
but
you
Soul is
think
very
not,
gay.
then maybe you should reconsider. This motherfucker.
yes, canon.
Oh, absolutely.
I watched the movie recently, canon.
Is so gay.
I
I-
can see him doing the hand thing.
the like,
Yeah.
what is
Not
it
the
called? I know
hand
what you're
thing.
talking about.
The like the wrist.
I
Yeah.
could see him flipping the forklift upside down, and it's like the limp wrist. thing.
The How did this slip by conservative Disney parents? I don't know.
I know.
Early 2000s were built different.
They were. Our parents were unbothered by this. They were more worried about
No,
I don't
they
know
didn't know. They
the
didn't know
housing
Casey.
crisis. They didn't know Casey. Like this is fine. Clown cars. Sorry about this quality image. Holy fuck. Most clowns are pretty gay. To be
I
fair,
count the pixels on one hand.
I'm a clown and I'm pretty gay. So
Absolutely fair and valid.
for I think this is my last slide. For my final slide, I have a shout out to one of the most homophobic cars that I've
Oh?
ever seen in my life. Oh, never mind. No, never mind. I have one more.
No,
Whatever the fuck this
back.
car is.
It's the Pride. What is that, like a...
Cancel it.
It looks like it's the Fiat thingy. It's the Pride Fiat. I
think
don't know if I'm
so.
actually seeing that correctly. My dad could tell us.
The
That
by
is a
by the
Fiat.
by the right tire on this car, that is a Fiat. But the Pride. Okay, now this is the homophobic slide. My bad. It's meant to come up later. Police cars.
Fair. Correct.
And the reason that
Correct. The only
in the
the only canonically queer cop that I know of is no longer a cop and a JoJo's character, so
exactly. And the reason I'm so
Nothing else
salty about it is because the only fucking time I ever got pulled over, I wasn't even driving. I got the ticket, motherfucker.
Wait, what?
I wasn't driving.
Doc
They
says
said, "You're-"
yikes.
They said your seatbelt isn't on right. Here's a ticket, and I went, "What the fuck?"
How did you have your seatbelt on? Have we been
It
doing
was behind me.
Oh. That's
That
that's
happens.
lame.
That has to be the most I need to fill my quota ticket.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to bring attention to the fact that Mel did say they only know one canonically gay cop, as if like real cops don't exist.
I don't know any real cops. None of my friends
Okay.
are those types of people.
That was a test and you passed.
Real cops aren't canonical. They're actually fake.
They're not in my canon.
There's no cops in this canon. So.
And that's how you keep your peace. And
Absolutely. Oh,
Kay,
Whoops.
Kay said, "I'm done. Bye."
I meant to end the presentation instead of just fucking leave.
The cops got you.
Oh.
They did. I mean, what the hell?
nice. I liked that. That
Thank
was a
you.
good presentation.
Thank you for letting me present on the Pocket Leafs channel.
Of course, of course.
my presentation started on the last slide when I could present, and I was like, that's not where you need to be.
Do you navigate a Discord server with over 100 different channels? Froggy, I have no idea. Every Discord server that I'm in that is like that, I've muted and I've never looked at them. Oof. I have no idea how, Froggy. So, Doc, I saw you were gonna say, dang, that's a homophobe car. It's very undercover and that's scary. Oof. Hello, Aqua. Welcome in. You just missed the gay car presentation by Kay, but Shadow is about to give us a presentation on Steven Universe. Whenever that they are ready for that. It's late. Oh yeah, yeah. My spelling also gets worse as it gets late as well. I'm very excited for this character development presentation.
All right. Some of this stuff is. Listen, I'm one person. I can only interpret so much. Please, God, don't come for my throat. If you have a different opinion, that's fine. Also, big spoiler warning for Steven Universe, obviously. I tried to do it as little spoiler as possible in case people tuned in and were like, I'm gonna watch Steven Universe. And I was like, not anymore.
Not anymore, you're not.
Hold on. I'm also pull this up.
As someone who frequently watches video essays for things they haven't actually watched, I think they'll be fine. They'll just get spoilers for all the main character beats, but it hits different when you see it yourself.
That's true.
I've never seen a single episode, so I'm gonna be spoilered to heck.
Alright, so I will say, actually, before I continue, this presentation was originally made because someone said to me, Pearl is just there to be like a love interest and that's it. And I was like, you have not even watched this show once in your life. You can go home. So I said, I'm making this presentation to prove you wrong. That's why it starts with Pearl. Pearl is my favorite character, probably. One of my top 2.
She's a good one.
So she is a really good character, I feel like. A lot of people don't like Pearl, and I'm kind of like, what's wrong with you? But Pearl is like this character. She's originally designed to be just like an assistant, like a personal assistant to one specific like gem in the show. And so that's her entire personality, right? And like every Pearl that's ever made is meant to be like that. And obviously the premise of the show, they're breaking the mold of the society they live in, blah, 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 blah. You've just watched the show. But this Pearl specifically is in service to a gem called Rose Quartz. And Rose Quartz decides that she wants to defy Homeworld, and Pearl follows her to do that. And so Pearl kind of starts off being this obedient person, and she's rebelling now. But the reason she's rebelling is because she's being obedient to the person that wants to rebel. So she's not really rebelling still. And she goes through most of her like life being like, oh yeah, I've rebelled on my own person. And then the person she rebelled with gives up their form to make the main character of the show, Steven. And she is now lost because she has no guide. And the other thing that happens is she's falling in love with this person who gave up their form. So now she's just lost. And throughout the show, Pearl just becomes more aware of her individuality and her ability to her free will to make her own decisions. And towards the end of the show, she realizes she's always been serving Rose this entire time. And so that's why I really like her, is because she has to go through this arc of like, hold the fuck up. I thought I did the thing, and I didn't. But yeah, so that's her thing. So she eventually, and every character learns their stuff through Steven. So that's kind of how that goes. I just want to make sure I got all my points.
I love Pearl's character design.
It's really nice.
Yeah. I did go with the original character design instead of the way she ends the show. But I do like all of her outfits and stuff.
She never misses.
No, she really doesn't. The next character, another one of the best ones. They're all good. They're all the best characters, but this is one of the best characters. Garnet is a fusion of 2 different gems. One of them is Sapphire, who has power to see the future. And the way she sees the future is one clear, concrete road in front of her of how everything is going to happen. And the other gem is Ruby, who is a bodyguard gem. Her role is to just protect people, and that's it. So she could be rambunctious and stuff, but she's just instructed to protect. And when Sapphire is about to die, Ruby saves her, which is not supposed to happen. According to Sapphire's brick road path of this is the future, Ruby defies that. And because of that, they fuse and create this new person who now they have this future vision, but it's no longer solid. It's a liquid. And it can change, and it's got multiple paths, and it branches out, kind of like a river. And Garnet has to learn how to control it almost, because it's no longer one thing. It's not like, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow? It's what could happen tomorrow, 62 things, blah, blah, blah. So she struggles with that a lot in the show. And then the other thing she struggles with is originally on her fusion, when Rose finds her, she tells her not to question herself and that she is the answer, but doesn't answer like a question with it. She's just an answer. And so later in the show, Garnet realizes the only reason she's Garnet is because Rose told her that she was supposed to be. And so she kind of breaks apart because of this. And she just kind of doesn't know if she even is meant to be Garnet anymore. And so she kind of learns later on that she does want to be Garnet, but not because Rose thinks she should, but because Ruby and Sapphire truly love each other. So they like get married, and they're permanently, even when they're apart, they're together. And it's a very like, I just love it. But she also learns that she has more control of her future vision than she thinks, because Steven grows up, right, as he's in the show, because he's a human. He grows, changes, that's his whole plot line. She doesn't predict that originally, and so halfway through the show, she's like, why can't I figure out what's going on? I'm so lost. And she realizes that she's not changing the present to see the future, which is a really cool, like, metaphor moment, I think. But yeah, that's Garnet. She kind of, like, has all this shit going on. She's got 2 people's worth of plot going on at once. Next character, gotta finish up the Crystal Gems. OGs with Amethyst, who was this quartz soldier who's meant to be like big and strong, and she follows orders. She's just kind of a soldier. That's what she's for. But she was in the ground for too long. She took too long incubating, and she's malformed. She's really small. She's very chaotic and crazy, and she's not what she's supposed to be. So she's, for lack of a better word, she's a mistake. And to make it worse, she was created from this event that is such a horrible, like, it's just a horrible thing because it destroys the planet. So her whole life she sees herself as this mistake that was a byproduct of this horrible event. So she's got no good views of herself. And so to deal with that, she's kind of learned not to look at her emotions, not to think about herself, and not to do all this stuff. But then she also feels incredibly excluded because all the other crystal gems existed before her. And so they know Homeworld, they know the reasons they're fighting, and they have reasons to fight. And Amethyst is just there because nobody else wanted her. So she's kind of like, she hates herself in probably the most relatable way. But Steven kind of comes through and shows her like, hey, you're not alone. Like, I got no fucking clue what's going on. I'm this reckless kid that nobody trusts with anything. And, you know, like, I think, you know, you're great. I'm the byproduct of this also other horrible thing where you guys lost the most important person in your life. And so she relates to him, and they become very close, and she learns slowly, one thing at a time, you know, read her emotions, figure out what she's feeling. She loves herself, she becomes more comfortable in her form, and then she also grows into become more mature, but she also doesn't sacrifice the like fun, reckless side of her. But I think what's cool about her is that she kind of like, she changes without losing anything, you know, like she kind of is like, oh, in the beginning of the show she's the goofy, reckless one, she's immature, you're like, oh, that's Amethyst, whatever. And at the end of the show she still has that, but she's also like, she's proud of it, And she's like, this is me. This is who I am. Fuck you if you think I'm wrong, is what she says. Not me. That's not what I said. This is my favorite character, for sure. Pearl and Lapis fight for my favorite spot, but Lapis was she was this gem who wasn't actually part of the crystal gems. However, something happened and she gets poofed into like her crystal form, and so she's no longer real, and her own team, her own people, homeworld, trap her inside of a mirror and use her to try to find information on the rebels, the like crystal gems. And so she's basically spends years being trapped and tortured, essentially, and then is eventually damaged to the point where she can't work anymore. And Steven frees her. And he's the first gem, because she's not a part of the crystal gems, and Homeworld treated her like an enemy, who doesn't treat her like that. He's like, oh hey, I trust you, we're friends. And with very little interactions between the two of them, the first time she comes back, Gizmo died.
Oh no.
The first time she comes back, you see she already, like, she normally is very flighty, right? So she wants to run, hide, get away, does not want to fight. But when Jasper brings her back, and Jasper's gonna try to fuse with her to like kill Steven, she decides, no, I'm gonna stand up for myself this once, and traps Jasper in a fusion at the bottom of the ocean. And then, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But then throughout time, she realizes she has nowhere else to go, so she stays on Earth with Steven, and she finds something worth fighting for through Peridot and the home she's got and the friends she's made. And even though she runs, right at the very end, she realizes, like, these people made her feel like her only song in the show, which is really good. She sings about how she learns to feel things she's never felt before these people, and see things the way that she's never seen them before. And so she kind of learns that some things are worth fighting for. And she comes back and she fucking wrecks house. Okay, she god tier fighter. Love Lapis. I could talk about Lapis for hours.
Lapis is, honestly, she's so good. Her and Peridot are my two favorites, and they're so good.
My favorite quote my favorite quote in the show is like literally 2 words or 3 words, and it's towards the end of the show when, you know, Blue and Yellow Diamond come to Earth to like activate the cluster and fight the crystal gems, finally put them at rest.
Yeah.
And Blue Diamond has this power to make you cry and like basically become so upset and overwhelmed with emotion you can't fight anymore. And she's trying to use it on Lapis, and Lapis is just like, I felt worse. And
that was so iconic.
Knocked her out. I was like, oh, girl, like she's an icon. She's so good. All right. Next is her like Peridot. Peridot is a homeworld gem who she kind of like, her entire thing was she relied on technology. She was a newer age gem, so she was not around when the war started, but you know, she knows what she's fighting for because she's been in Homeworld, and Homeworld has told her this is true. She uses her technology to like, which basically backs up a lot of what Homeworld says, and she uses her technology to get a lot of tasks done. And so when she gets stranded on Earth without her technology, without her information, she has no access to the like data that she keeps. She has to form her own thoughts, form her own opinions, and do things on her own. And it's this moment where she's like terrified. She doesn't know what's going on. She's like, this can't be possible. I know this to be true. This is what the truth is. And then she looks at stuff and she goes, this isn't as bad as I thought it was, or these people aren't as mean as they are supposed to be. And she kind of learns that she can have her own thoughts, her own feelings. And she even learns that she has her own powers. She's got metal kinesis. But I personally love that one of the things she does is she makes it's art. She makes quote unquote art, but she calls it Meep Morp, which is probably my favorite vocal stem ever. Is I will just randomly say like Meep Morp, and that is my like favorite thing ever. But she builds a home, and she has like all this stuff with her and Lapis in this like barn, and she really sees a whole different side of the world that she never saw because she was stuck looking at her like computers essentially. Next character is Bismuth, who probably has about 40 minutes total of screen time in the entire show, including the movie. But I love Bismuth. Bismuth doesn't really change too much. But at first, you know, she's there and she's like, when they first find her again, they find out that she wanted to shatter Pink Diamond and was talking to Rose about doing that. And for unimportant reasons, Rose decided that was not a good idea. And Bismuth got upset and went to shatter Rose, and so Rose bubbled Bismuth, put her away, and said, no thanks, we're not doing that. Steven finds her and frees her. She introduces the plan to Steven, and Steven's like, yo dog, that's not happening. And so she's like, well, here we go again, and tries to shatter Steven, who bubbles her and puts her away. And then later on, they find out a lot of stuff that goes on, and they release her. And she thinks that no one's going to want her around anymore because she tried to kill them. So why would they want her? You know, she's created a stain on her past. But she learns that like the crystal gems aren't about what has happened; it's about what will happen. And they want, if you can prove that you're there for them, they'll be there for you. So they kind of teach Bismuth that. But that's really like Bismuth. I'm sure has other character growth. I think there's more that goes on in Steven Universe future, but.
Yeah, there is a little bit.
I can't really talk about that.
It's not like a whole lot. It's just she is starting to be more acclimated to Earth life and just gets a crush on Pearl. It doesn't really go anywhere past that. Yeah, but it's really cute.
But yes, that's Bismuth. And I guess we can talk about Steven.
It's not like he's the titular character or anything.
Yeah, I don't even know who this is. He's not even in the show. Who cares? But Steven is this child who has so much shit on his plate from the day he's born, because he is his own mother, but he isn't his mom because he has none of her like memories, thoughts, and feelings. And so he struggles with having this weight of responsibility, but nobody trusts him with it because he's this child, he's immature, he doesn't know how to use his powers, and he just kind of goofs off a lot. And so throughout the show, it's basically the whole plot of Steven Universe is his growth through learning what his powers are, learning how to control his powers, and learning how to use them in a way that he thinks he should be, and how he wants to impact the world. Because people tell him he can do one thing, and a lot of times he's like, I'm going to do it this way, though. I don't want to fight like this, I want to do that, or whatever it is. But he kind of learns how to be Steven Universe, the gem. But as a person, he's always been a protector and a caring, like, emotional friend. So he has a lot of those problems, and he deals with a lot of other people's problems. And until you get to Steven Universe Future, that man does not touch a single one of his own problems. Not once has he even looked at them. But he does throughout Steven Universe Future. He does kind of learn like his problems are valid, and he has to kind of like he's got to deal with them. Otherwise, he's going to turn into an ugly monster. Maybe metaphorically, literally. But yeah, that's Steven. He's just kind of this fun guy. And that's it. That's the last slide.
Nice. Steven is very nice. I didn't realize how much I liked Steven as a character until I watched Future, and I was like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
Okay, Gizmo, did you have stuff that you were sharing tonight?
No.
Okay. That's what I thought, but then you said that Blaze came up with ideas. I was like, oh wait, did they?
No, Blaze forgot as well.
That's fair.
No, Blaze spent the day playing Breath of the Wild.
Good for her. Good for her. All right.
Honestly,
She's
yeah.
enjoying it.
It's like her third playthrough.
Yeah. That's wild. Also, thank you, Shadow, for the hydrate.
Of course, I have 70,000 channel points. I gotta spend them.
I've really so
I have 50.
I have like a like an idea for my next sub goal that ideally would let people be able to blow through their channel points.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a whole lot to spend channel points on. Oof. Okay. Are you guys ready to hear about the gayest anime that's... Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. It's one of those animes that, like, the girlies and the LGBTs, they look at it and they're like, if you're a fan of this, you are gay. That's it. But the straight bros, I don't know what they watch. It can't be the same JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that the rest of us watch, though. It just can't be.
What would they even enjoy about it?
I don't
Literally.
know what you're talking about. JoJo's is 100% straight.
100% straight, sure. I do think it's funny. Part 5 specifically gets called the gayest part of all. And
No.
in an interview, somebody was asking the writer about it, and he goes, I think it's just because they're Italian. It's like, no. It's not just because they're Italian. It's because you put them in fruity little outfits and you make them very much have a lot of very well What am I saying? He gives them a lot of chemistry that feels like it's got romantic subtext.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to dox the Discord server, so I'm gonna... Where? How do I get out of... Oh, I full screened this? Okay. We're good. I do need to screen share with you guys, though, so you guys can see it. There we go. I don't know if it's gonna put Spotify in that as well, so maybe mute. or no muting, it's up to you guys. Okay. Alright. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. One of my favorite animes and mangas of all time. It's very good. So a rough introduction to JoJo's is it's a manga that started in 1987, and it was still ongoing at the time that I wrote this, but part 8 has finished, but he has said he's gonna write a part 9, so it's like tentatively ongoing. The man is kind of old. He's like in his 60s, I think. So we'll see. But the story is currently split into 8 different parts that can be further split into 2 timelines. The first 6 parts follow a lifelong feud kind of between the descendants of Jonathan Joestar and the forces of evil. Most of them are tied back to Dio Brando, and we'll get into that. Part 7 and 8 take place in a different kind of alternative timeline that often references the original 6 parts with like character references and redesigns of previous characters and their stand abilities. The first 2 parts, Phantom Blood and Battle Tendency, deal with vampire-like creatures and a power system called Hamon, which is kind of like this life energy that takes the power of the sun, which is also ideal for battling vampires, and it's kind of tied into your like breathing and everything. The third part introduces the stand system, which is what the rest of the series uses, and stands are like a manifestation of a user's spirit, and only other stand users can see them, which is why JoJo's oftentimes gets called the anime with buff men staring at each other while ghosts punch them, essentially. But each stand has a unique power. Like, one person has the power to stop time, another person has power to reverse damage, power to grant life, etc., etc. So that's kind of a rough overview of what JoJo's kind of is, or like the things you need to understand before we get into it. But also, can we appreciate this picture on the right?
I've been looking at that for a minute now. Are they having some sort of orgy, or is this...
So
happening?
this is a snippet from like a whole thing that Araki drew of all of his characters like dancing. And this is Dio, the biggest slut in the entirety of anime. This is Mariah from part 3. She's a minor villain that you see in like 1 to 2 episodes. And this is the Middler. You never actually see her in this series. You just see her stand ability. But I loved this picture, so I had to put it in there. All right.
It's something.
It sure is something. So part 1, where this all gets started, is Phantom Blood. I don't remember. Every part I put a quote in here, because I made this whole, like, it's supposed to be a book that I made for a graphic design class a few years ago. So the layout's a little weird. But anyway, very good picture. I'm glad that you also agree. I love the artwork for JoJo's. It's so good. So, Phantom Blood essentially just follows Jonathan Joestar, which is this man, and we'll get more into that in a second. And oh, that says Dario, but that needs to say Dio instead. There's lots of typing mishaps, I guess. But anyway, it follows Jonathan Joestar and Dio Brando throughout their teenage years and young adulthood. We follow Joseph through their quarrels, and eventually lead to Dio becoming an evil vampire, which Joseph has to learn the technique of Hammond to defeat. So, yeah. A quick, before we get into the actual plot of part 1, I want to introduce you guys to the most important characters. So, first we've got Jonathan Joestar, the first Jojo. He was born on April 4th, 1868, so he's very old. But he was born and raised in Victorian England. His family was very wealthy, although I don't think they, like, said if they were, like, of nobility or anything. They're just rich. Don't know why. Jonathan was taught to be kind of like a gentleman type of guy. When he was a kid, though, he was a lot more proud and mischievous, but he kind of grew out of that, and his whole character, the whole point of his character is just to be a true gentleman and the embodiment of all things good and humanity. He's very positive, kind, he always tries to do what's right, he would probably be a feminist, he's very gentle and sympathetic, and he is very driven to save others. And that's the basic rundown of JoJo. Dio, on the other hand, he is a rapscallion. He was born to an evil con man who abused him. So we've got a little bit of tragic backstory there, which I think kind of explains his actions in a little bit. But after his father's death, Dio went to the Joestar family because when Jonathan was a baby, like very, very small child baby, Dario actually witnessed Jonathan's parents getting into a carriage crash, and he thought they were dead, so he started looting their bodies, and Jonathan's father woke up and thought that Dario was trying to save them. He didn't realize he was being robbed, or if he did, he decided to ignore it. So Dario was like, Dio, my son, I'm dying. These people are in debt to me. You go and you milk them for every penny they're worth. And Dio's like, all right, understood. So he goes, and he spends his whole youth trying to ruin JoJo's life. He like, like he gets there, immediately starts picking fights. JoJo's kind of has a thing where if there's a dog in the series, that dog is not safe, and it all starts with Dio putting Jonathan's dog in an incinerator and killing him, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
He comes off very mean. It's almost to the point, so one of my friends who had not seen JoJo's at the time was like, why does everyone love Dio? Why is he everyone's baby girl? Why is everyone so horny for this man? Because she had only seen like part 1, and I was like, I can't explain this to you other than that everyone just has worms in their brain for this evil, evil man. So after their entire adolescence of tormenting JoJo and just being a menace, he decides he's going to murder Jonathan's dad. So he poisons him with this, like, I guess it's like a slow burn poison where it makes them sick first, And Jonathan figures that out. He's like, my father is dying in the same way that your father died. And so he finds this mysterious substance that Dio has been giving their father, and he investigates and finds out that Dio was plotting to murder George, which is their father. And so there's a whole standoff, and during that standoff, Dio turns himself into a vampire by using this stone mask that, for some reason, Jonathan's dad just had. He was like a historian, I think? I know Jojo was like trying to study history. Dio went to college to be a lawyer, by the way. I don't know why that's important, but it is.
Is he bad at it or something?
We never actually get to see him practice law. We only see him practice being evil and being slutty.
Ace
So,
Attorney
I guess
Dio.
that's the law, though. Huh?
I mean, it might be. So basically, the way the stone mask works is when it gets like blood on it, it activates, and it has these tendons that kind of come out and like go into your head and turn you into a vampire. So Dio does that to escape the cops and also just to continue his reign of terror. The next two important characters are Will Antonio Zeppeli, who teaches Jonathan about Hamon. He is kind of like his, what is the right word here? Like his teacher, mentor kind of guy. He's very cool. He's got a cool hat. And then our other important character is Robert E.O. Speedwagon, who is got to be the most down bad man in history. He is in love with Jonathan Joestar, so much so that after the events of part 1, this man sets up a foundation that literally just exists to serve the beck and call of the entire Joestar family bloodline. This man, I don't think anyone would do that if they were not in love. There's nothing other than that. There's nothing too much special about Speedwagon. He's just a really good guy. Honorable street thug is how he's described. And these are Jojo's allies in defeating Dio. I'm not gonna spoil how the actual fight goes down. I'll let you guys watch that.
I honestly forgot he was a thug before he met.
His on time.
That's how they met. I completely forgot.
He's a thug, but he's only doing street rat behaviors for like 5 minutes, and then the rest of the
Yeah.
series, he's like, I'm just gonna be a good guy.
I'm gonna dedicate my life and my family's life to you.
Literally. I don't think Speedwagon had any family, though. He just made this organization and put all this money into the Joestars.
No, doesn't he have doesn't one of his descendants also show up later though?
No, that's the Zeppelis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're thinking of Caesar.
Yes.
Which segues us into Battle Tendency, which is part 2. It takes place in 1938 to 1939. The story follows the misadventures of Joseph Joestar, the grandson of Jonathan. He is also learning about Ripple abilities in Hamon, and his plight is that he has to take down these ancient super beings named the Pillarmen. And they are the original creators of the stone mask. And the Pillarmen are vampire creatures, and the stone mask, when applied to them, ideally would turn them into ultimate life forms. So, that's the baseline for Battle Tendency. It's like one of the shortest parts, I feel like. Part 1 and 2 are very short. So our main guy, everyone knows and loves him, Joseph Joestar. He's a natural-born Hamon user. He was raised by his grandmother Erna, who is Jonathan's love of his life. She's a great. I don't know why I didn't put her in this book. But she raised him. He's kind of a trickster. One of his like catchphrases, or like, it's a catchphrase, but it's also kind of like a catch moment. But he'll like start an altercation with someone and then predict what they're gonna say, and he always follows it up with, your next line is, and then he'll say it, and then the person will then say that and then be very shocked that he surprised them, and it like catches them off guard and everything. But he's very hot-headed, very quick to cause fights, and confront people. He's irresponsible and he's very wild. He's almost the polar opposite of Joseph, but he's still like a decent guy, supposedly. Over the course of his battle to learn how to master Hamon, though, he becomes a little bit more focused and more dependable. He believes anything that is not needlessly cruel is fair in a fight, so he kind of fights dirty and will not hesitate to cheat. He usually finds himself in like pretty sticky situations, and he makes use of his secret technique, which often takes his enemies by surprise. His secret technique is running away, though, so it works for him. And over here we have Caesar Zeppeli, Joseph's boyfriend, pretty much.
Basically, yeah.
You've heard it here first. Gizmo agrees. So Caesar becomes Joseph's ally. He's also hot-blooded, but he's a little bit more dedicated. He's initially arrogant and acts superior, but once Joseph proves that, like, he's worth anything, they become friends. So they go together and they learn Hamon and learn how to master it. Caesar's a little bit more respectful with, like, his elders and superiors, so he's a pretty chill dude. They did say, canonically, Caesar has committed every crime ever, but this was also at the time period of time where some of the big moral problems are not considered crimes for some reason. So that's the kind of guy he is. Let's see, is there anything else? Oh, he's a bit of a ladies' man. That was important for some reason. He's very charismatic. And they're a good duo. They fight well. The ladies. So the other important characters in Battle Tendency, we have Lisa and Susie Q. Lisa is Caesar's mentor for Hamon, and it's later revealed that she is the wife of George Joestar, which is Joseph's dad. And Lisa is Joseph's mom. We learned that at the very end of part 2, and it was a big shock to Joseph because he did not realize that Lisa was so old, because she looks good for her age, apparently. But she was trusted with the red stone of Asia, which is this red stone that goes on the stone mask that the Pillarmen are looking for, so that they can become the ultimate beings. So her life mission is to just protect that stone, and also train Joseph and Caesar how to use Hamon. Susie Q is Lisa's assistant. She's very much like not exactly a heroine in distress, but that same type of vibe. Very, like, airheaded almost. She's very cute. I like her a lot. She's very fun. She ends up being Joseph's wife. So, that's how she's important. But now we have the Pillarmen. People tend to refer to them as ancient stripper gods, because that's just how they look. This is the most clothes we ever see on them, ever.
I have just for the first time looked at the pictures. So... wow.
Yeah, JoJo's can be a lot sometimes.
Clothes are not necessary for a storyline.
Well, yeah, I can't defend this. I really can't. So, the Pillarmen are from a race of ancient humanoid superhuman beings. So, which one was JoJo's mom? Lisa was JoJo's mom. She's very nice. I like her a lot. So the Pillarmen are these superhuman beings. They are now nearly extinct, but used to live hundreds of thousands of years ago in the American continent. They are highly intelligent, extremely strong, and able to manipulate their bodies to be... I cannot read. To a very fine degree. There are no spaces there. However, they are vulnerable to rays of sun and to Hamon. They are the creators of the stone mask. And we're gonna start on this side with Santana. He is the youngest. He's violent and aloof, although he was separated from the other three, he fought until the end, and he kept calm when he was exposed to sunlight. We see him first in the story. He's in Mexico he gets found, like his stone pillar that he's in gets found, which is why they're called the Pillarmen, because they're all found in stone pillars. And a team of researchers from the Speedwagon Foundation are experimenting on him in Mexico, which is where he was found. And he comes alive and kills people, and Joseph goes and fights and is able to miraculously win. And that's when these three come into play. Wamu, which is this one right here, he is a proud Pillarman warrior in the respectful service of his superiors, SEDC and Cars. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Yes, SEDC is spelled weird, but it's literally just supposed to be a reference to the band AC/DC, I'm pretty sure. Because Araki does that a lot. A lot of the characters and a lot of their stands are literally just band names and song titles. We'll see that later on in parts 4 and onward. Wamu is, no spoilers here, but Wamu is the next one that they fight, and it's very sad and very tragic. If you know, you know.
I forget, honestly. It's been so long.
So that is where one of the character deaths of part 2 happens, if that jogs your memory any. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention. When Joseph first sees these three Pillarmen, they like start to fight, and then they're like, nah, too easy. We're gonna give you a month. Joseph talks them into letting them train and giving him a month so he can get stronger and fight them. And so they put these wedding rings inside of his body that after a month will kill him, kind of like poison him, so that he can't just run away. And so when they defeat Wamu, Wamu gives them there's 2 antidotes that Joseph needs, and he gets the first one when they defeat Wamu. And after that, we have SEDC. He's the second highest ranked. He's very confident in his abilities, and he sees humans as inferior. And that fight was pretty wild. And he was carrying I think he had the other ring. Memory's a little hazy there. He might have had the other antidote. The SEDC and Cars fight happened on the same night. So after SEDC, we have Cars, who is the leader of the Pillarmen. He is seeking to become the ultimate life form by merging the Red Stone of Asia with the Stone Mask, and he looks good while doing it. His hair, amazing. His personality, kind of mid. He's just a power-hungry dude. I don't want to spoil too much about how that goes, but basically Joseph has to fight them, and he fights them, and so things happen. Part 2 is kind of not complicated yet. Part 3 is where things start to get a little bit complicated. So part 3 is set in like the 1980s, late 80s, I believe. Stardust Crusaders is what it's called. We follow Jotaro and a crew of 4 others on a quest from Japan to Egypt, kind of in a 80 days around the world type of vibe. But Dio is back, by the way. They have to defeat Dio in order to save Jotaro's mother from dying. This is where stands get introduced, and it's interesting. The stands in part 3 specifically are all named and named after tarot cards, which was a really cool naming mechanic that I liked.
Yeah. Wasn't it tarot cards and Greek or Egypt gods?
I know they had something that was like similar to Anubis.
Something about Egyptian gods or something.
Maybe. I think they were all after. I think that one might have been like one of the users, but the actual stand itself was still after a tarot card. Because there's like 76 tarot cards or something like that.
There were so many, yeah.
So, Jotaro Kujo, who the fuck is that guy? Jotaro is Joseph's grandson. So, we keep skipping generations here. Holly is Joseph's daughter, and she marries a Japanese man and then gives birth to Jotaro. Okay. This is when we start having a lot of information because I have to talk about the stands as well. But Jotaro is kind of like... A lot of people like to think that he is autistic coded. Nothing's ever specified, but some people think he just has those vibes. But he is kind of a delinquent. When you first meet him, he's literally in jail because his stand has out of nowhere just manifested, and he thought he was being haunted by a ghost. So to protect other people, he put himself in jail because he absolutely just messed some guys up in a fight with his stand, and he's like, yeah, that's too much for me. So anyway. Okay. Jotaro is a delinquent who lives an ordinary life until the Joestar family's old enemy Dio returns. So once Dio comes back to life and gets his stand, all of the other Joestars start manifesting their own stands as well, because not only is Dio back, but he has also taken the body of Jonathan Joestar from part 1, just put his head right on top of that body. So when that body's stand awakens, everyone else in the bloodline does as well. I don't really know how that was supposed to work, but it works for him.
Science.
It's just a thing. JoJo's is one of those things that if you don't think about it too hard, everything makes perfect sense. And that is the best way to enjoy the series, because it's not about what happens, it's about the characters, in my opinion. So, Joseph comes to Japan with a guy that he met, and we'll get to that in a second. And they go to Jotaro, and they're like, hey man, we've got to go to Egypt to kill Dio. And then they find out that Holly, Jotaro's mom, is being killed by her stand because she's not strong enough to have one. It's a thing, it's like an idea in the series that never really comes up again. But they're like, hey, if we want to save your mom, we gotta go. And one thing about Jotaro, he may be really mean to women, he may call his mom a bitch, but he loves her. And so he goes, because he's not gonna let anything happen to his mom. So he goes, and a little bit about his stand. His stand's name is Star Platinum, and he is basically the punching ghost blueprint. Stands have a lot of abilities. We never really get to see them very often. Yes, Whelmed, he is a mama's boy. Also, hello, Whelmed. I hope you're doing well. The Star Platinum is mostly just used to punch, but he does have some other abilities, like superhuman senses, big strength, lots of stamina, accuracy. He's very fast. He's a close range stand. And so he can only be active within a 2 to 3 meter radius from Jotaro. And he is one of the strongest stands in the series, supposedly. NANI? Good listening to my JoJo lore while I work. We love to see that. Okay, there's nothing else here. Sometimes they'll use abilities that never really come up again. So like Star Platinum has this one like finger ability that I don't really remember what it was, but I hear people make lots of not safe for work jokes about it, which is the only reason I remember it exists. Let's take a look at the big bad of the series. We've got Dio. He's back in all capitals, exuding the biggest horror energy you will ever see until we get to part 5. So he's reappearing as Dio. Not much about him has changed. He did spend 100 years at the bottom of the ocean in a coffin. So there's that. He's old as fuck, but also still kind of like an 18-year-old. Yeah. He was 18 when he became a vampire, and he still kind of looks every bit of it. JoJo's is weird, where sometimes characters will look really old because they're so big and buff, but that was just what was cool at the time, I guess. So the important thing about Dio in part 3 is he is got an inkling that the Joestars are gonna come after him. So he starts gathering people and giving them stands with the use of an arrow that is not really talked about until part 4. But anyway, he starts giving people stands and having them fight for him and track down the Joestars and Jotaro and company. And he's basically just kind of making a cult, sort of. But his power is called the World. I should have had my tarot cards out for this. Anyway, he's got the World, which is a humanoid stand that specializes in melee attacks, roughly equal, if not superior, in its immense force and speed to Jotaro's Star Platinum. About a year after gaining his stand, Dio discovered that it is capable of stopping time, so he can pause time and punch really good, apparently. At first, he could only do it for like a second or so, but he kept training and practicing until he got it up to a maximum of 9 seconds. And when you watch the anime, it's gonna be the longest 9 seconds of your life.
So long.
It is. Also, hello, Pinky! And also, thank you so much, Undead Brave, for the raid. I'm not gonna mute in Discord for this raid, because I don't know, it just seems unnecessary. But welcome in, Undead Brave enjoyers. You guys are just in time to talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. We are going through part 3 right now. Anyway, I think I saw you guys are playing Minecraft. I hope it went well. I hope your stream went well. I don't know why my shout out thing did not work, but maybe it's taking a minute to go through. Didn't want to miss this PowerPoint. Welcome in. I'm telling them about Dio right now, in part 3 specifically. Oh yes, so Dio likes to use his time pausing abilities to prank people and make them feel like he's teleporting them. Or teleporting himself, and it's actually really funny. There's one scene in particular where one character is trying to confront him, and Dio was like, if you take 1 step up those stairs, I'm gonna take that as an attack, and you're gonna be dead. And this character keeps taking the step up the stairs, but every time he does, Dio pauses time, goes down there, pulls the man back so he thinks he didn't actually take the step, goes back up to where he was standing before he paused time, and then unpauses it. And so the character is like, what the fuck is going on? I keep taking this step and nothing's happening. A little bit of trolling.
So
it's a good scene, but when I see cosplayers try to redo it, it's so fucking funny. It's hilarious. Okay, now that we've talked about Dio, let's discuss our main team of allies here. So we've got Joseph Joestar, in parentheses, old, because it's the same Jojo from before, but now he's old. Elderly, even. I think he's supposed to be in his 60s.
I don't know, because...
Yes, he was born in 1920.
Later, older. And it's like a 10-year difference. And just the rate of decay.
I mean...
from here till then.
I've been seeing my grandparents go through the same thing.
Yeah.
That 60 to 70, if you're not lucky enough, it's rough for you, so...
Yeah, like here he's supposed to be a silver fox, and 10 years later, yeah.
So, Joseph is back, and he's got a little bit of some new things going on. He's mellowed out a lot. What is that word that I wrote there? I don't know what that is, but he's a little... He doesn't like that his daughter married a Japanese man and now lives in Japan. I don't know if that was supposed to be like, oh, Joseph's a little xenophobic and racist, or if it was more like, I miss my daughter. I don't really know. It never really came up again after the first episode. I don't know why I thought that was important to put here. Anyway, Joseph's stand, which is the biggest difference here, is called Hermit Purple, and it's a tangle of thorny vines that conducts Hamon, so he's still kind of using it, but they don't really talk about it. He can also use cameras and televisions to perform spirit photography, which he uses to find out where Dio is hiding. So that's pretty cool. I don't know why he has both of those abilities. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but like I said, we're not supposed to think about it too much. The guy that Joseph brings with him to Japan to pick up Jotaro is named Muhammad Avdal, and he is so cool. He is a fortune teller, and he's a really cool guy. He joins the group on their journey to defeat Dio, providing knowledge and guidance about the enemy stand users and local cultures along the way. His stand is a big firebird that is also really cool, and it's Magician's Red. His main thing is he can control flames, and Avdol was actually born with his stand, as the other two characters were as well, I think. So Avdol's been a stand user since birth. He's so cool. Okay. That's kind of the main thing about him. He's very knowledgeable, and he's just a nice guy. Our other guy over here is Kakyoin, Noriaki Kakyoin. A lot of people ship him with Jotaro. They make sense. They make sense together. I love that I did not finish typing the year here for his unspecified birthday. My boy, I love him.
Born in 19.
He was just born at 19. So Kakyoin is a Japanese student who was brainwashed by Dio during an earlier trip to Egypt and is sent to kill Jotaro. And after he's freed from Dio's influence through Jotaro literally having his stand suck the mind brainwashing creature thing off of his head and out of his skull. It was very wild. Anyway, he decides to join the Joestars in their quest. He literally painted a portrait of Jotaro just cause. Yeah, when you first meet Kakyoin, they kind of make it look like his ability is connected to his paintings because he's painting a picture of Jotaro and then paints a large red line across his leg, and then Jotaro suddenly has this huge cut on his leg. So it was really cool. But that's not at all how his stand works. His stand is Hierophant Green, and he is able to extend tentacle-like limbs or unravel to a modest extent, as well as fire a barrage of hard projectiles, which is an ability he calls his Emerald Splash. That's kind of the main thing. Hierophant Green is a long-ranged stand, so he can, depending on how you use him, he can be pretty far away. He's a pretty cool dude. A lot of people like Kakyoin, whelmed in the chat. It would have been really cool if they made the painting thing a part of his stand, because some stand users, their abilities are highly specific. We won't be getting into all of that, but there is a stand user in part 3 specifically whose stand is connected to a comic book, and it will predict the future, and it's really it never works out for them, but it's a really cute idea. Our last guy here, Jean-Pierre Polnareff, he's got the biggest titties in this whole group. Okay, he is not a child, so I can say that about him without going to prison. He's around the same age as Avdol. 5 years younger. So Jean is a boastful but honorable and well-meaning Frenchman. He was also originally under the influence of Dio when he meets the group, and he picks a fight, but Avdol defeats him, and after he gets defeated, he's like, you know what, I'm gonna join you guys and take this motherfucker down. So he does. His most defining trait is his honor. While he was under the control of Dio, he even refused to do something as dishonorable as attacking someone from the back. So he's one of those types of guys. He does not like to cheat. His stand is Silver Chariot. It's a humanoid stand that uses a rapier as one of its... What? It's one of its fastest stands? He's a fast boy, and he's a sword-fighting boy. Polnareff was also born with his stand and has intensively trained it, so he knows very well what he's doing. So these guys... Do I? Okay, I don't talk about another one. These guys, they travel across the world. They go from Japan all the way to Egypt. They start off on a plane. The plane crashes. They go on a boat. the boat is a stand, and they get attacked by a giant monkey, and it's really weird. And then they just travel through different parts of, like, Central Asia until they get to Egypt. And it's... A lot of people like part 3. It's not my favorite. I honestly thought it was a little bit of a chore to get through, but it was still fun. So, that's all I'm going to say about it. There is also a dog in this part who's a main character. His name is Iggy. He continues the tradition of dogs are not safe in JoJo's. We don't talk about the orangutan.
Oh, no.
Literally. Part 3 is when JoJo's Bizarre Adventure starts to really get bizarre. The next part, part 4.
Already bizarre. Enough, at least.
No, it only gets more bizarre with each part, but I think part 3 was when it really got weird. And part 3 also kind of started the, like, Monster of the Week formula that JoJo's kind of continues all the way up until... I can't say for part 8 because I've never read part 8, but it at least continues that all the way through part 7.
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. It's people's favorite after you finish part 3 and make up every lore, aka me. That's fair. I'm more of a part 5 person myself, but part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable. It's oftentimes lovingly summarized as a group of small town teenagers and like a couple of non-teenagers get together and kink shame David Bowie. I'm being legitimately serious here. There is no jokes.
That makes sense, yeah.
So, Diamond is Unbreakable is set in 1999, 12 years after Stardust Crusaders. Jotaro is back, and he's tracking down Josuke Higashikata, who is the illegitimate son of Joseph Joestar. This is also when we learned that Joseph Joestar is a dirty cheater, and he cheated on his wife. Which seems to be the thing that people are doing these days. Was not expecting this PowerPoint to be relevant in that kind of way. David do be liking hands. He does. He pulls a Ned. Anyway, Jotaro has to find Josuke to basically tell him, like, hey, my grandpa's your dad. My grandma just found out because they're getting Will stuff figured out, because that's what old people do. And while he's there, they end up looking for a magical bow and arrow, which is what Dio was using to grant people stand powers. And along the way, Josuke and his friends discover that a stand-using serial killer is on the loose in their hometown of Morio, and they set out to stop him. This is where the bow and arrow gets introduced, which causes characters who are pierced by it to develop a stand ability. The arrow will continue to be relevant for the rest of the, well, parts 5 and 6. This is also the only part, aside from, okay, so part 2 is not really connected to Dio in any way, but, like, it still kind of ties back to Dio's lore. This part doesn't. It is the only part that is not touched by Dio or his influences at all. So it's a nice breath of fresh air if you are tired of that mean, nasty man. All right, let's talk about Josuke. His design is actually kind of supposed to be influenced by Prince, which I thought was pretty cool because my mom really likes Prince. So I was like, hey, there's an anime character that's loosely based off of that guy that you like to listen to sing sometimes. So that was pretty cool. Josuke is a very fun, savvy, confident, and courageous teenager. He's very friendly and loyal. And he's just overall like a really good guy, but he's also very hot-headed, loses his temper very easily depending on the situation. Usually if you insult his hair, game over, you're dead. But not really, because he would never kill you. I like to say Josuke is like the Steven universe of JoJo's. Part 4 is a lot less killing the enemies and more like befriending them type of vibes. And Josuke also has healing powers. His stand, Crazy Diamond, can restore objects and organisms to a previous state in history. So one thing that he likes to do is, there's this one, for instance, there's this one time he has to, his mom ends up drinking something that had a stand ability in it, and so to like save his mom, he breaks a glass bottle, punches it inside of her, fixes the glass bottle to encase the stand, pulls it out, and then is able to fix his mom so she doesn't know that she was just impaled by a ghost. So he's a healer, a support main, if you will, an aggressive support main. That's his main thing. And then on the other side, our main villain of part 4 is Yoshikage Kira. I don't have a big enough picture of his blonde days, but he is intentionally designed after David Bowie. He is a man in his 30s, and he's a little odd. Yoshikage Kira is an abnormal and paraphilic serial killer whose routine is shaken when the ghost of his first victim, Remy, begs the Joestar group to look for him, and he attracts unwanted attention by killing another stand user in the area. So, fun fact, I don't know if you guys have heard the like internet urban legend thing about the girl who always has her dog sleep under her bed and will like put her hand over the bed and the dog will lick it, and then one night she hears a noise and she thinks, she puts her hand out for her dog to lick it for comfort, and something licks it, and when she wakes up the next morning, her dog had been murdered, and the noise she heard was blood dripping, and that the killer was the one that licked her hand. That happened in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I don't think this is the origin. I don't think this is where the story came from. But it's in here. And when I saw that episode,
if it's not.
Oh, when I saw that episode, I was like, no fucking way. Because I remember having a 7-year-old tell me this story in like, I don't know, when I was 7. And it was so weird. I'd never been thrown back like that in my life. It was wild. Anyway, that's Yoshikage Kira, your local hand fetish man. He does have a hand fetish. If you've ever seen an anime screen cap where the guy is like telling this ambulance worker that he saw the Mona Lisa and it gave him a boner, that's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. That's Kira. You're welcome. Anyway, his stand is Killer Queen. He's got a lot going on. So Killer Queen creates deadly bombs, and why is this all over the place? Okay. Killer Queen can blow things up real good, and that's after he kills Remy, everyone else gets killed with his bombs. He does get a couple different makeovers throughout the series. His first look is what he genuinely looks like, which is David Bowie, but after he gets caught by Josuke and the gang, he approaches a stand user who has the ability to swap people's faces, and he then becomes someone else, who is a normal salaryman who's like married to some chick who has a kid, and he goes and pretends to be that man for a little while. But then the kid finds out that something ain't right, and so he kills the kid, but then realized that was a really terrible thing to do. So he unlocks the ability to reverse time. There's a lot of main villains in JoJo's fuck with time. It's a theme. So he can reverse time, and his new ability unlocks this striped look for him, and that's his like final form. So that's his main thing. Blows up, reverses time. It's honestly really cool, and the way that the anime does its like theme song for it is it's so cool. If copyright in DMCA was not a thing, I would subject you guys to watching all of the JoJo openings in order, because it's literally so cool. All right, our main gang here, we've got a lot of people call him Coochie. He's an inch taller than me, but is drawn like a toddler. Koichi Hirose. He's a good guy. Great Days is the best JoJo OP. I don't know if it's the best, but it was one of the most exciting visually. It's so good. JoJo's wasn't the origin for the urban legend, just used it because it's Western and Araki likes Western things. That's fair. That's absolutely fair. It was such a wild moment. Anyway, Koichi here, he's kind of meek. He's Josuke's age. They're both starting their first year of high school. Koichi kind of finds himself accidentally involved in this world as he befriends Josuke. And Koichi actually gets wrapped up in a battle and becomes a stand user himself. And his stand is called Echoes, which is an evolving stand that has 3 iterations, acts 1, 2, and 3. And his main power is the power of sound in the form of physical sound effects, and like onomatopoeias and that type of thing. But he can use physical sound effects to affect an enemy depending on the word that it is. So like, for example, if he wants something to like bounce, he can do like the sound effect for bouncing and like throw it on a thing, and that thing is now bouncy or something like that. He doesn't have a lot of fights, but when he does, it's actually really cool. And he's just a nice guy. He's pretty chill. Our next friend is Okuyasu. That's Josuke's boyfriend. I don't make the rules here. That's just how it is. He's an interesting guy. He's really, really dumb, but he means well. And he's actually first introduced as an antagonist. So he and his brother live in a rundown house that's like across the street from Josuke's house. And Josuke and Koichi are like investigating, so they're like, I didn't think anyone lived there. And that's when they meet Okuyasu. And they find out that he has a stand ability called the Hand. And his power is basically to like delete space between things or delete things that he touches, which is actually really cool. So they have their fight, and his brother pierces Koichi with the arrow, and that's how Koichi gets a stand. And after that fight, Okuyasu's like, you know what, you guys are actually not that bad. And then he befriends them. Just decides he's gonna be Josuke's best friend. And that's what he does. And he is a really good ally, thick and through. Our next character, one of my personal favorites, this absolute bitch of a person, Rohan Kishibe. He is, I think, 19 or 20. He's the outlier here. He's not a teenager going to school with these guys, but he is a professional and very successful mangaka. He often gets roped in with paranormal events while conducting research for his manga. He's very eccentric and kind of mean, but we love him anyway. He's really weird. Like, one of the first things that he does when you meet him is he licks a spider just so he can know what it's like, just because. His stand is Heaven's Door, and Heaven's Door's ability is to transform others into books, and he can read them. And so he can like find out everything he needs to know about a person with his stand, and he can also write in information. So, for example, in part 5, or before part 5 takes place, he gives Koichi the ability to speak Italian by using his stand and just writing in there that Koichi knows Italian. He's such a little freak. He really is a little freak, but you know what? He's living his best life. And then our last, is this last? Yeah, our last character here that I have is Remi Sugimoto. She is the ghost. I think she was Kira's first victim. She and Kira, I think, were the same age, or very close. But she was Kira's very first victim in his life as a serial killer. And as a ghost, she haunts a hidden street of Morio in hopes of meeting someone willing to help her bring Kira to justice. And she actually, fun fact, was Rohan's babysitter, and Rohan was there the night that she was murdered. She just like threw him out into the bushes out in the window to protect him. It's kind of weird. But that's what happened. And she's kind of like the inciting... I guess, yeah, meeting her is the inciting incident for the main plot of part 4. So, that's Diamond is Unbreakable. We're about halfway through JoJo's Bizarre Adventure now. I told Shadow and Gizmo and Kay that my presentation was going to be kind of long. I didn't realize it was gonna be this long.
I think it's been longer than both the other two presentations. By like twice now.
Well, I'm so sorry. We're only like halfway through it. Luckily though, part 8 I've never read, so that one's gonna be really, really quick. I may not even go into it because I don't know if the information I have is completely correct. But anyway, my absolute favorite part, the only piece of media I need in my life, is part 5, Vento Oreo, or Golden Wind. It's so good. That's where all of my favorite characters are. So it's set in 2001, just a couple of years after Diamond is Unbreakable. We're in Italy now, and we're following Giorno Giovanna. That's his name. You know, I just realized that's not his birth name, but he's not trans, but I'm pretty sure his birth name is kind of like a dead name type of situation, because for trauma reasons. So I just realized that. Anyway, his main story is that he has a dream to rise within the Neapolitan mafia and defeat the boss of Passione, the most powerful and influential gang, in order to become a gang star, not to be confused with B-stars. And there's his theme song. That's how you know he's popping off and doing well. Also, thanks, Shadow. That was perfectly timed. It'll probably always be there until Twitch is like, you can't do this anymore, and then I'll move to YouTube where I will continue to do that. That'll be my final straw. Okay, so with the aid of a capo and his men, and fueled by his own resolve, Giorno sets out to fulfill his goal of absolving the mafia of its corruption. He's really mad about drugs and children, which, you know, fair. That seems to be a big thing that is not talked about, but is like these characters' motivators in this. So, our two, well, there's a lot of main characters for part 5, but we've got our main Jojo, Giorno Giovanna. He is the illegitimate son of Dio. So right after Dio got out from the bottom of the ocean before part 3 takes place, he immediately gets to fucking. That is the only way Giorno can exist. Just immediately off the boat, conceiving babies. That's what he's doing. So Giorno was conceived with Jonathan Joestar's stolen body. So he is like an honorary Joestar. He has the birthmark. I have failed to mention that every Joestar from part 3 onward, and then it also gets retconned as that everyone else had it as well, but they all have a star birthmark on their shoulder. If I ever get a tattoo, that's what it's going to be. It's like an identifier for them. So we know he's gonna be an alright guy because he has the Joestar mark. He's introduced as Haruno Shiobana, a half-Japanese teenager living in Italy. That's who Jotaro is looking for. He speaks of his intention to join a powerful gang, Passione, and his dream of becoming a gang star. Not like B-stars, but he's just kind of throwing words together here. I don't really know why he does that. He's 15. 15-year-olds do stuff like that, I guess. But he wants to restore virtue to the corrupt mafia. I don't know if the mafia has ever been virtuous, but Giorno has good memories of mafia men because his mother was not a good mother. She was terrible. And she married an abusive man in Italy, which is how they end up in Italy. And Giorno has a terrible childhood. But at one point in his childhood, he sees a guy who is being hunted down and going to be murdered by the mafia. And he protects that man. And so afterwards, when that man gets over whatever was going on in his life, he comes back and helps Giorno, basically. Does something, threatens his dad or stepdad to stop being a piece of shit towards this child, and just kind of make Giorno's life less miserable. So Giorno's got like a good thoughts and feelings of people in the mafia. He is also a natural born stand user. His stand is golden experience, and his main ability is that he can create life. I should also mention Giorno is kind of like the Jesus figure of part 5, and Dio is just quite literally Italian for God. So Araki's not really subtle here with this, but he can basically give things life. He could turn this piece of plastic I have in my hand into any creature he wants. And the way it kind of works is if somebody were to, like, I don't know, smash a hammer down on this frog's head, if he turned that piece of plastic into a frog, then that frog would deflect the damage onto the person who was doing it and kill them. That happened in the first episode, by the way. Golden Experience is one of the most versatile stands in the series. It has the ability to create and manipulate life. He usually does plants, and like small animals like frogs. He does frogs one time and everyone has ran with it and made it his personality, which, you know what, fair enough. Me too. He can use both these animals and plants for a variety of purposes, ranging from disguise to tracking. He can also punch real good, short-ranged power type. And he punches real good. Most of the main JoJos end up punching like Jotaro, and it's great. He uses his punching powers with the intent of killing. Part 5 is when everyone starts dying again. I'm pretty sure, aside from how you want to look at the ending of part 6, I'm pretty sure more people die in part 5 than the rest of the entire series, from what I've read so far. It's not good, but it's also great. This is where we get a little bit into spoiler territories. At the end of part 5, they come into contact with a arrow that kind of powers up their stands, and so Giorno uses it to get Golden Experience Requiem. And this power is a little convoluted. It's basically the other side to the main villain's power, which we'll get to in a second. But if you look at cause and effect, Giorno can take away the effect but keep the cause. So, for example, whoever is killed by Requiem will also have their death turned to 0, forcing them into a death loop for all eternity. It's pretty brutal. But on the other side of that coin, we have Diavolo or Vinegar Doppio. The names for part 5 are real good. They're all just named after food or just basic Italian words. Diavolo and Doppio are kind of a really, 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 really bad representation of DID. They're two different people in the same body type of situation. So we've got Diavolo, who is the boss of Passione. He is a very secretive man, which, you know what, fair enough. If I were the boss of a gang, I would not want my identity to be known either. But anyway, he's very corrupt. He corrupts Neapoli's by dealing drugs in the streets. Because of his obsessive secrecy, almost no one knows anything about him or his appearance, name, or past, or anything. He's also the father of Trish Una, a character we'll get to in a minute. And he commands Team Bucciarati to bring her to him whilst keeping her safe from the traitorous La Squadra, which is their execution squad. Real bad guy. It's kind of funny because he's not really the worst villain in JoJo's. He's not even the worst person in part 5.
No. Yeah.
Are we all thinking about Chocolata right now?
Yeah.
He's not in this presentation because I couldn't cover all of the characters for part 5. Honestly, I could have done this entire assignment on part 5 specifically. I don't know why I didn't do that, but anyway. He's just a man who wants his privacy, and he also runs the mafia and has no qualms about dealing drugs to children in the streets. On the other side, you've got Doppio, which is a younger and more innocent and eccentric underboss personality. He thinks of himself as the most loyal subordinate to Diavolo, but in reality, they're in the same body. It's a little unclear if Doppio knows that he shares a body with the boss. He kind of has this character quirk where he'll make like a phone ringing noise and then be like, oh, the boss is calling me, and then he'll pick up like any random object and answer the phone, and then basically Diavolo talks to him in their headspace. It's interesting when you look at what they're trying to do. But anyway, that's Doppio. He's actually kind of neat. Their stand is King Crimson, which has the power to take away the cause but keep the effect, basically. So if I were to punch you in the face, I get to skip the punching, and you get the full force of being punched in the face without realizing you've been punched, is basically how his ability works. He has a smaller part of his ability called Epitaph that Doppio can use. And it's kind of like a future vision thing. He can see 10 seconds into the future, and it helps him avoid things. It's kind of... This is when stands start getting very convoluted in how they work. But if you don't think about it too much, it's okay. He's also able to communicate with Diavolo by hallucinating. Yeah, we've talked about that. But this is King Crimson. He's interesting. There was a lot of debate before the anime came out about how the stand ability worked, because it wasn't very clear in the manga, because the way that you read comic books is you fill in the gaps yourself between all the panels. But when stuff with his abilities started happening, you couldn't do that, but that's not how we read comics, so it was really hard to convey in a comic book format. But in the anime itself, it's not that hard to understand, at least in my opinion. I didn't think about it a whole lot. I just took it at face value and moved on with my life, and I was not very confused. So cause and effect is their main thing. These are the 6 main characters, 7 when you include Giorno, that mean the world to me. So at the top, we've got Bruno Bucciarati. He is the MILF, the blueprint. He is a mobster and a leader of his own squad within Passione. The way we meet him is he's sent out to track whoever killed Leaky Eye Luca, which got killed kind of by accident in an altercation with Giorno in the first episode. And that's how Bruno meets Giorno. He becomes the first to lend meaningful support to Giorno and his ascension in Passione's ranks. Bruno's like, hey guy, hey man, I like your personality, you fight good, we both think the drugs is a problem, join my team and I will help you overthrow the boss. So that's Bruno. He's a real good guy. His stand ability is called Sticky Fingers, but in the English localization, they changed it to Zipper Man, because he can just make zippers appear. And he can travel to pocket dimensions, or he could tear you apart with zippers. It's honestly kind of cool. The next is Bruno's unofficial husband, Leone Abbacchio. I talk about this man a lot. He is the love of my life. He is also the cop I mentioned earlier that's not actually a cop anymore. So, Abbacchio is a very depressed ex-cop alcoholic who became a member of Passione through Bruno. He accompanies Bruno and Giorno on their mission to protect Trish. Abbacchio is also a stand user. His stand is called Moody Blues, and his main ability is Moody Blues can kind of rewind and show a recording of any person at a certain spot. So his stand is not an attack stand. It's one of few in the entire series. So that's kind of interesting. His stand is, I don't have a picture of it, but his stand is very pretty. You guys are gonna have to just trust me on that. But his whole thing is that he used to be a cop, and it was a story about ACAB and disillusionment because he realized that, oh, all of these cops are being bribed and we're all dirty cops. And then he gives into a bribe, and the person who bribed him ended up killing his partner, like cop partner, not romantic partner, but it really fucked him up, and he got in trouble and left the police force and was really at his lowest. And then Bruno came around and was like, hey guy, let's cheer you up. Come join the gang with me. And they've been together ever since. Next person we should probably talk about is Trish Una. She is the daughter of Diavolo and a woman who is kind of not really important because she's dead at the beginning of the series. That's just how we know Trish. But she has become the target for numerous people who are trying to overthrow or get revenge on Diavolo. So she ends up being bodyguarded by Bruno and his team, and she eventually awakens her own stand called Spice Girls. And her stand is really cool. She can like change the elasticity of things, and it's really cool. She has one cool fight and that's it. But she's a cool person. Over here we've got Guido Mista. He's canonically stinky. They literally do have a line talking about how he smells. But he's a very superstitious member. He's a gunslinger, and his stand is called Sex Pistols, and it's basically 6 gremlins that are really tiny that can manipulate the trajectory of a bullet. And they're really cool. He's also very superstitious. He does not like the number 4. So his stand ability is actually their numbers. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and then 5, 6, 7, because he can't have 4s in his life. That's a fun character quirk. He's a really cool person. A lot of people are horny for him. A lot of people are horny for Bruno as well, but the Mista stands are unhinged in a different way. Next, we have Narancia Girgar. He is the entire reason I got into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, because I thought he looked very cool, and I love him. He's my sweet precious baby boy, one of them. So, he is also an idiot, but he's very loyal. Narancia is a member of Bruno's team, and by extension Passione. He follows Giorno and Bruno in their mission to protect Trish, due to sharing the same tragedy as her. I don't remember why I worded it that way. Basically, Narancia has this character moment where he's like, I don't know if I wanted to go against the boss with you guys, but since the boss tried to kill Trish and now we're like, fuck that guy, I'm gonna realize, wait, I actually can relate to Trish about being betrayed. I'm gonna betray the boss and help Trish. So that's his character arc. His stand ability is called Aerosmith, and kind of a fun fact about Narancia, his whole character design is like androgynous on purpose, kind of as a reference to the song Dude Looks Like a Lady. I thought that was kind of neat. But his stand Aerosmith is basically just a toy airplane that uses like a scanner system and also has unlimited ammo to shoot people real good. So he can like scan to show life forms in an area based on their breathing, and then he can shoot them up, which he does iconically shoot up a gay couple in the middle of the street in Italy. Not for homophobia reasons, but because they were trying to kill him first. But people like to present it that way because, I don't know, they think it's funny.
Are you talking about the guy who liked being treated as a dog, though?
No. There are lots of canonically gay couples in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5 specifically. But no, I'm talking about, I think it's Squalo and Tiazano? The ones with, like, the shark stand that made it to where Narancia couldn't speak.
Yes. Right.
Those people. No. The last part of the Bruno team is Panicotta Fugo. He's a really interesting character, and I will fight for this man. A lot of people like to say he's a traitor, and I will just murder them for that. Except for I may not do that, because that's a bit extreme. But Fugo is a young and quick-tempered strategist. He also helps Giorno and Bruno in their mission to protect Trish, but he does eventually leave the group when they decide to go against the boss, because he doesn't think that he would survive it. He thinks that they're all going off on a suicide thing, and he's like, I love you guys, but I don't know if I can do that myself. And Fair, understandable. He's just trying to survive. His stand is called Purple Haze, which can spread a virus that infects anyone who breathes it in. And he honestly is a very compelling character that has a lot of like depth and nuance, in my opinion. So the anime expands on his backstory a little bit. So not everything that I'm about to say is in the manga, but Fugo is a child prodigy from a rich family who has put immense pressure on him to just constantly study and be the best and just, I don't know, just be like the perfect child. So he's under a ton of pressure, which kind of causes him to have very extreme anger issues that he doesn't really know how to deal with. And he ends up getting into college as like a 12 and 13-year-old. And while he's in college, one of his professors kind of engages in a very inappropriate relationship with him, not only as a student, but also as a child. And there's one altercation they have in the library where he is like touching his shoulder and inviting him to his house and implying that they might get up to some activities that a 13-year-old honestly shouldn't be getting up to anyway. And Fugo's like, stop fucking touching me, and beats him to death with an encyclopedia, which, like, good for him, as he should. And after that happens, his parents kick him out of the house and are like, you've got to go do something else with your life. You are an embarrassment, and they disown him. And that's how he joins Passione, because Bruno comes across him. Bruno is kind of like Batman, where he adopts children that just need somebody to love them, basically.
That is an accurate representation. Yeah.
Pretty much. So that's Fugo. He's got a lot on his plate. Okay. The rest of part 5 is a lot of, like I said earlier, there's so many characters in part 5. You have like the assassin squad, which are the first people that these guys fight. It's honestly too much to go into right now. But you have them, and then when they betray the boss, they get all attacked by all sorts of people, and it's honestly insane, and anyone that is even remotely interested in JoJo's should watch part 5. I would even go as far to say, if you don't care to watch the rest of it, just watch part 5. I need more people to know part 5 in my life.
They'll be so confused.
Honestly, okay, so JoJo's is kind of structured in a way where you could theoretically watch or read one part, like they're kind of standalone stories. It's just that they come together and weave a greater narrative. And there are a few like character things that make more sense if you've seen every part, but I don't think it's necessary to understand the story that the part sets out to tell.
Yeah.
Especially part 5. Part 5 is seemingly very disconnected from the rest of the series, universe-wise. But it's my favorite, so everyone needs to watch it.
I'm interested to see if it comes back in any way later as, like,
Nope.
Giorno being... No, I mean, like, if they ever decide to do something in the future in, like, part 9 or so
I hope
on,
so.
if they keep making it. Because that would be interesting for, like, a gang war ran by somebody with stands.
I just want more part 5 content in my life. It's the only fanfic I've been capable of reading for the past 2 to 3 years. I think I have a serious brain rot problem with these guys. They're just so good. I have not, though, so there's a spin-off novel called Purple Haze Feedback that's about Fugo after part 5 takes place. And I have not read it yet, but I've read a lot of fanfic that incorporates it, and I want to read it because I love Fugo, but I also don't want to read it because from what I heard, I don't really like how they characterize Giorno. Because a lot of people say Giorno in Purple Haze Feedback is kind of channeling a lot more Dio energy. And I'm like, good for him, but that's not my Giorno. If I have a very specific way that I see Giorno, to the point that I have a hard time finding part 5 merch that I like. But I will say, Box Lunch has a really pretty t-shirt that's got Giorno on it when he unlocks his Requiem ability. It's like a screenshot
Okay.
that, and I was like, this is it. This is the godly person that no other Hot Topic could never. The Hot Topic Part 5 merch is like the screenshot of Giorno being licked by Bruno when they first meet. And it's got like a really dumb caption. I'm like, this is stupid. I don't want this. But it's also the only Part 5 thing you have, so what am I supposed to do? Anyway, it's time for lesbians. Part 6. Part 6 is Stone Ocean. It takes place in Florida in 2011. Jolene's a Florida girl. Jolene is the daughter of Jotaro, and Part 6 starts with her getting wrongfully accused of a crime she did not commit, and she is sent to a maximum security prison. While imprisoned, she struggles within a long-standing plot between a Dio, who is dead, very, very dead, but his very loyal follower slash maybe boyfriend, parentheses, if they were boyfriends, it was very disgusting and wrong, because Poochie was like 16 at the time, but that's a whole bag of worms that
like
may not even be related.
gap.
A lot of people say, well,
No, exactly. Like
a lot of people look at it.
Context on it is very difficult.
The
to
context is
explain.
difficult, but a lot of people look at it and they consider Dio to be like 118, even though he's still mentally like, we don't know how,
Yeah.
where Dio stands age-wise, brain-wise, between that like 100-year thing, because like, people treat him like he is 100, but then I also know, like, was he frozen in time? Like, what was that? What was that about?
Also, to be fair, like, if you spend 100 years in a box, how well does your psyche handle? Because Dio wanted to make a hostile takeover in Egypt where he couldn't go outside.
He may be a lawyer, but he's not a very intelligent man all the time.
Exactly.
But then also, some people also would say that an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old are very morally wrong. There's a lot of discourse about this that I don't think I am fully qualified to weigh in on. But Dio and Pookie in a relationship, while it seems like it's canon, it's also very... Boy needed to run. Anyway, Jolene Cujo, my favorite woman. She is the only female JoJo in the entire series as so far. Part 6 is also the very last part that got published in Shonen Jump magazine. And after this part, Araki swapped to a different magazine that was, I think, I don't know if he's in the seinen genre now, which is for adult men, or if he's gotta be in seinen. I don't think it would be in josei, which is for adult women. Anyway, he does not write for teenage boys anymore. This was his final straw, which we'll get to that in a second. But Jolene is the first woman, the only woman. She gets framed for a DUI murder and is sent to Green Dolphin Street Prison. She's very flighty and abrupt and snappy with her elders. She's got daddy issues, but we do not fault her for that. Jotaro, as much as people love him, he was a shitty father. He did have his reasons, but I'm not gonna empathize with him. I'm only here for her. Jotaro is not one of my favorites. He's good, but he's not my favorite. But she's very bitter with Jotaro for being an absent father. And she's tried multiple times to, catch his attention by committing minor crimes in her childhood, and she's been to jail before, which is why it was so easy to frame her for this DUI murder. Fun fact, she got framed by her boyfriend, so Jolene has not had a very good time with men, period. But after she gets sent to prison, her father gives her this amulet thing that's got a piece of the stand arrow in it, and she awakens her string-based stand called Stone Free. After acquiring her stand and being told by Jotaro that he actually does love her, she decides to mature a bit, and she becomes more courageous and confident, and Jotaro kind of sort of gets, like, knocked into a coma and he might die, and Jolene is like, you know what? I'm gonna miss out on my chance of escaping prison right now to save my father. Because he fell into a coma due to White Snake stealing his stand and his memory, which we'll get to that in a second. But Jolene's stand Stone Free is very cool. She can use it to unravel parts of her body into a string, and it's also a very versatile stand that lets her listen in on communications as well as escape and hide by unraveling parts of herself. And when she assembles the string into like a solid being, she can punch real good, just like her father. They even have the same punching catchphrase. So in the Eyes of Heaven game, if you play both of them together, it's a real cute moment. So, she's very strong. That's basically what that's saying. She's very, very strong. On the other side, we've got Enrico Pucci, or Pucci. I don't really know how to say his name. He's Italian. He is a loyal follower and friend of Dio, and he aspires to implement a plan long formulated by Dio to achieve heaven. He's also a priest, but it's not the same type of heaven that most priests try to achieve. So he works as a chaplain at Green Dolphin Street Prison, and he secretly frames Jolene and uses her as bait to lure in Jotaro so he can steal the memories and his stand. He does that through his stand, White Snake, which is honestly has a really cool ability where he can take discs from people, and the discs are like their memories or their stands, and he can give people stands that he's collected on these discs. And he uses that a lot for our Monster of the Week formula that we typically see in this series. He became a radical believer after frequenting Dio. What does that mean? He frequented Dio. They hung out a lot. Honestly, one of the coolest abilities. Yes, you were right, Gizmo. Yeah, so Dio kind of... This is all retcon because it's never come up before part 6, but Dio had this, like, idea of being able to reach heaven and becoming, like, the strongest, most ultimate person ever, and he wrote about it in his diary. And that's why Pucci needed Jotaro's memories, because Jotaro had read the diary and then destroyed it, so no one could achieve heaven. So that's his main thing. What is this sentence? So Dio's main thing was he wanted humans. Oh, he thought humans were helpless before many forces which ruled the universe. Among these forces, God's will and fate, which Pucci dubs as gravity. They do call it gravity, which gives me great screenshots of Dio looking real serious, being like, hey, do you believe in gravity? It's like, man, really, really looking like a Victorian guy out here today. So yeah, White Snake is a long-distance stand, which allows Pucci to conceal his identity for a good part of the series, or at least like the first half of part 6, from Jolene and squad. Let's see, what else is important? This is a lot of information on White Snake that honestly could have been summed up in a few quick sentences, like what I did. So basically that's his main thing. The main gang for the series, we've got Hermes Costello. She's gorgeous. She voluntarily goes to prison. Like, she commits crimes for the whole sake of going to prison so that she can seek revenge on her sister Gloria. Because Gloria got murdered by a man named Sports Max. And Hermes is like, I'm gonna go kill this man. Need to go make dinner as well, so I'm gonna just switch to watching. No worries, Shadow. Thank you for coming in and giving us the Steven Universe presentation. Okay, back to different types of lesbians. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So she gets revenge for her sister, and then after that, she's like, all right, I'll help you, Jolene, because they were kind of friends at this point. So she allies herself with Jolene, And
Literally girl boss moment, literally girl boss moment. Actually, I love her. She's amazing and amazing. All right, bye.
that absolutely scared the shit out of me. Oof. We love Discord calls. Okay. She is queen. She is. So, Hermes acquires a stand called Kiss, which can duplicate things using these stickers. She's an absolute girl boss. And she's really cool. The other side, we have Foo Fighters, which is canonically non-binary, does use they, them pronouns in the anime, which is currently coming out. Never felt so seen before in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Love them. The Foo Fighters is a creature, but also a stand. It's a little convoluted, kind of. So, Foo Fighters is the stand, but the stand was initially given to just a bunch of plankton. Because Poochie just decided to put some discs in plankton and see what happens, I guess. And after a while, these plankton kind of become sentient because of their stand. And once they fight Jolene for the first time, they're like, Jolene has showed me what it's really like to live. And I'm gonna be their friend. And we're gonna live our best lives in this prison. So that's what Foo Fighter does. Let's see. I did not type out what. So the Foo Fighters' ability basically kind of lets them split up and create more plankton, and they like have this little finger gun where they shoot people. That's mostly what they use in battle. They need to drink a lot of water because they are plankton. But they're very cool. They were initially created just to protect some discs that Poochie wasn't using, and then they decided to help Jolene. Best character creation I've ever seen. Literally, Foo is so good. They call him FF a lot because it's just easier to type out than Foo Fighters, and then in the anime they call him FF because Foo Fighters is just actually a copyrighted band name. So, there you go. Our next important player is Emporio Alnino. Emporio is a child, a small baby child. Actually, FF, like, does something to me. Love you and, like, everyone else on my Twitter feed. Foo is not my favorite, but I really do love them. But all of the Part 6 fans that I have, like, come across online, Foo is everything to them. Which, absolutely fair. Foo is great. Emporio is a sweet little baby boy that lives in the prison. He doesn't know why he's there. He just kind of was born there and has lived there his whole life. He's a stand user. This text is so tiny. His stand doesn't really have a name. He can create ghost rooms, which is how he lives in the prison without, like, getting caught or anything. And so he uses these ghost rooms to just kind of chill out with some people. He sympathizes a lot with Jolene when he first comes across her, and he becomes one of her primary allies. Oh, no, his stand does have a name. It's called Burning Down the House. It never really comes up. I also had it at the very end. Oh, no. Oh, no. Not the spoilers. I had it at the very end of his blurb. But anyway, he's a cool guy. He doesn't seem super important, but he's very important at the end. I don't want to spoil too much, but we have him to thank. Okay, here we've got Weather Report. That's just his name. I don't want to spoil too much about him, or maybe I actually already did. I already did. Despite how he looks, this is a black man, and it's very relevant in his character arc. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about that. His character arc is literally just him experiencing racism. But that's, like, before the story takes place. I knew the kid was evil! No, Emporio's not evil. He's just really important, like, in a good way. He's not important in a bad way. It's not that kind of plot twist. I will defend him. It's very, like, oh, yeah. So, Weather is an amnesiac at his introduction. He's a fellow inmate who doesn't really know why he's there. He doesn't even know his name, so he just goes by his stand name, which is Weather Report. And he decides to ally himself with Jolene because he's friends with Emporio and he kind of hangs out in his ghost room a lot. So Weather's stand ability is that he can control the surrounding atmosphere and kind of like create weather, which is why he's called Weather Report. It's later revealed that he's actually Pookie's twin brother, mixed. And there's this like one plot line where I don't really remember why Weather was not a part of the rest of the family, but Weather started dating this girl that was Poochie's sister, and he didn't know that was his sister, and Poochie was like, I can't let this man date his sister. And oh my gosh, so Poochie is not white, but I think his sister either was or was white passing. So he like so this is Florida. And he tells some not very good KKK type of people. It might have actually just been the KKK. I don't remember. It's really rough and very heavy, and a lot of black fans are always like, this really came out of nowhere. They did not have to do all this. It was dead ass the KKK. Okay, yeah, it was bad. But Poochie was like, hey guys, this man, break him up. And so he literally experiences racism, and I think he gets killed or something, or they attempt to kill him, and then Poochie saves him, takes away his memory, and puts him in prison for some reason. So that's his thing. He's a real cool guy, despite all I just said. And lastly, we have everyone's baby girl, Narciso Anasui. Anasui originally gets introduced as a woman named Anastasia, which is why the English subtitles and the dub and everything calls him Anastasia, because Anasui is a fashion brand, so they couldn't use that name. But Anasui first gets introduced as a woman, and Shonen Jump was like, hey Araki, you have too many women in your series right now. And so he's like, okay. But people also theorize that since Anasui is a love interest for Jolene, that he might have gotten in trouble for trying to have lesbians. I don't know about that though. I wasn't in the room when they had that discussion. But anyway, Anasui is absolutely beautiful. He is an icon with one of the worst fashion tastes you'll ever see. His entire outfit is just like fishnet, cheeks out. The only thing covered on this man is his genitalia. And people love him for it. Anasui is also an inmate at Green Dolphin Street Prison who falls in love with Jolene and decides to help her with defeating Enrico Pucci just because he's down bad. Anasui is also a stand user who's wields Diver Down in battle. Yes, like, I'm gonna be honest. I don't really know what all Diver Down can do. I read the manga, and I'm not good at reading action, so it just went it went in one eye and out the other. You and me. I think Diver Down kind of works a little bit like, if you know My Hero Academia, there is a character who can kind of like phase into walls and stuff. I think Diver Down could do a little bit of that. He also just punches real good like everyone else in JoJo's. To this day, I'm still confused. I'm hoping the anime will clear it up. It hasn't yet. But Anasui hasn't really had a big fight in the anime yet, so we'll see. We'll see. I am just not good at reading action manga. It's just a lot to take in. But Anasui is beautiful, and the reason he's in prison is because, so he was dating this girl, right? And they were together. He was also just kind of like a weird kid. And so he started dating this girl, and this girl cheated on him. And so he's like, okay, I'm gonna kill you and the person you cheated on me with. So he kills him and goes to prison. BRB gonna make dinner? Of course, of course. I hope your dinner is good. All right. We are now outside of anime territory. Everyone who's read the manga likes Steel Ball Run the best. But this is Steel Ball Run, Part 7. There is some errors here. I made this before I read Part 7. I have now read it, so we'll see. They're beautiful. So, one thing to note, at the end of Part 6, the universe gets reset. I'm not going to spoil how, also because the anime is still ongoing, so a lot of people don't know how yet. But the universe gets reset. And so now we come to Steel Ball Run, different timeline. It's set in the US in the year 1890. So we're back in the 1800s. This story follows Johnny Joestar, not to be confused with Jonathan Joestar, even though I'm pretty sure Johnny is short for Jonathan. Johnny Joestar is a paraplegic ex-jockey and Gyro Zeppeli, master in a mystic art named the Spin, which is different from Hamon, but I understand them to be similar, but they're different, so I don't know. But anyway, Johnny and Gyro compete with a vast number of others in the Steel Ball Run race, a mad dash across America for a grand prize of $50 million. Basically, the Steel Ball Run race is a horse race starting in California. I don't know which part of California, but it starts in California and it ends in New York. They ride horses real good. Steel Ball Run describes a new continuity apart from that detailed in parts 1 through 6, so it's completely unrelated. But it does still have stands, and there are lots of references to the first 6 parts in the series, which is pretty cool. So, our first guy here, Johnny Joestar, he's a pathetic man, and it's not because he's paralyzed. He's he's a depressive ex-jockey. He used to be a good horse rider, but then, yeah, I did talk about how he gets. Okay, so he clings to hope that he can eventually one day regain the ability to walk again through this ability that Gyro has. And then the corpse, okay. There's a lot of, okay, so part 7 has the actual biblical person, Jesus Christ, as a character, kind of, sort of. They never specifically say Jesus, but it's heavily implied, and they also kind of, like, draw Jesus with, like, the crown of thorns. But they call him the Holy Corpse, and when people come in contact with the Holy Corpse, they get stand abilities, and it's weird. And if you can collect all the pieces of the Holy Corpse, then you become very powerful, which is kind of the main goal of part 7. They're fighting for the Holy Corpse. Now that that's explained, Johnny wants the corpse because he thinks it'll help him not be paralyzed anymore. When Johnny's introduced, he is distant, paralyzed, and his career is ruined because he is an asshole. And he was mean, and he was taking some people out on a date, and he cuts somebody in line, and then he's an ass about it. So the person that he cut in line is like, you know what, fuck you, and then shoots him, and he gets shot in the spine, and because of that, he is now paralyzed. That's why I say he's a pathetic man. Are the arrows made from the iron of his blood? I don't know, Gizmo. No, wait, no, I do know. The arrows are made from an asteroid. So part 7 is a completely different timeline. It's weird. I don't really know how this ties into Arrow lore. I've not read part 8 yet, but it might give more insight. Not really sure. So Johnny meets Gyro at the Steel Ball Run race, and Gyro kind of like hits him with his steel balls. It's not a euphemism, it's just quite literal. And they kind of hit Johnny in a way that he's like able to stand up on his feet for a second. And then he's like, oh shit, I gotta follow this man to the ends of the earth. So Johnny joins the race to pester Gyro and be like, hey, you gotta teach me this ability. I wanna walk again. So they do that. He follows him. They do the race. Jesus was the alien that came from the asteroid. I don't know. That's not what was said to have happened in part 7. But Araki is not afraid to retcon story points to add more lore, so who knows? Yeah. So that's Johnny's thing. Johnny does eventually get a stand ability called Tusk, which is also an evolving stand, kind of like Koichi's Echoes from a few parts back. Tusk's abilities are intimately linked with a supernatural phenomenon inherent to the world, spin. His stand works with the spin abilities. It's a state of perfect or near perfect rotation. So there's this idea. What? What? Anyway, spin is like a counterpart to Hamon, and if you like hit it just right, you can get like the golden triangle type of thing. No, golden rectangle. It's like to help you get the like perfect spin, and that's related to Johnny's stand. Gyro, on the other hand, one of the most beautiful men you'll ever see. He is gorgeous until he opens his mouth, and also until you realize that all these little squares on his face are his facial hair. So, like, in drawing form, most beautiful man. In real life, he'd be horrendous. The golden ratio? Yeah, but it's quite literally just the golden rectangle, and there's a point in the manga where Gyro is talking about it, and he's like, the golden rectangle is like the most beautiful, perfect thing. And then it shows a close-up of Johnny's eye with the golden rectangle in it, and they're boyfriends. They're boyfriends. So Gyro is a Zeppeli. Gyro's a master of the spin, hailing from the kingdom of Naples. Gyro is a cocky and flamboyant executioner marked by the harshness of life, who participates in the steel ball run for the sake of a young boy. So there was a child that committed theft to survive, and they were like, kill this child, and Gyro was like, nah, that's a child trying to survive, and they're like, you gotta kill him. And Gyro's like, what if I go do this race? If I win, can the kid not be executed? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. So that's why he's there. The Zeppeli's family's spin technique is usually applied with these special steel balls, and is a versatile skill that Gyro has trained since his youth. They use it for like healing purposes and also execution. Gyro equips himself with 2 steel balls as a means of self-defense, attack, and general strategic advantage. Throwing his steel balls with the spin, Gyro may create a variety of impressive trajectories, and he's able even to have the return directly to him. He can boomerang him, mainly after successful contact with his target. On impact with the flesh, spiral ripples will appear because they're spinning. Gyro may apply a wide range of effects to human or animal targets, including muscular nerve and bone manipulation, and the forceful wringing of flesh to drain water. Anyway, Gyro has a stand. It doesn't really come up ever, but his stand name is Ball Breaker, and he manifests when Gyro is finally able to use the golden spin. His stand is basically just a visualization of the spin energy unleashed from Gyro's steel balls, and the technique behind them ultimately becoming a stand ability. Ball Breaker embodies a vast force capable of bypassing dimensional barriers. Gyro is just all-around cool guy. Next, I don't know how he got elected, because never in my life would I ever think anyone with the name Funny Valentine would win a presidential election in the United States. Maybe that's my limited experience on this earth. I know no time in my lifetime would this man ever get elected. He does slowly get yassified over the course of the series. He does not start out looking this beautiful, but as he becomes the main antagonist, Araki's like, you're gonna be sexy now. That's kind of his thing. So, Funny Valentine is the 23rd president of the United States and true mastermind behind the steel ball run race. He typically watches He watches the competition from behind the curtains and hopes to gather the Saint's Corpse or the Holy Corpse. He wants Jesus's body to use the holy relic to further the United States of America's interests. In all honesty, Funny Valentine isn't really like a villain, but like he's kind of a villain. He's more so just an antagonist to Johnny, and at the end of the manga, Johnny literally says, I don't even know if I'm the one in the right here. For all I know, I might be the villain, but I'm just gonna keep fighting and doing my thing and living my life. I don't think Valentine is supposed to be seen as like an evil guy, but he's questionable, and he's the main antagonist. Part 7 is kind of got like a morally gray thing where like nobody's good, but nobody's really evil either. At least that's how I interpreted it. So it's kind of interesting. Anyway, Funny Valentine is a dignified but immoral patriot, militant in his will to accomplish what he thinks is best for the country. Valentine's foremost characteristic is his deep patriotism. Maybe that's the thing that's supposed to make him evil. He's not. Maybe it's just because I'm comparing him to the likes of like Dio and people that are like literally supposed to be the embodiment of the most evil, disgusting human beings to ever walk the planet. So, compared to previous villains, he's like, that's it? That's all? Okay. But he's very patriotic, and he's marked by the gruesome fate of his father. His goal is that the U.S. stands over the rest of the world, and to do so, he seeks the blessing of the Holy Corpse, becoming ecstatic when the corpse blesses him. So Funny Valentine, his stand is called Dirty Deeds Done for Cheap. Some people think the localized name should be Filthy Acts Done at a Reasonable Price. I think that would be hilarious. It often gets shortened to D for C, but Dirty Deeds Done Cheap is just so fun to say. Anyway, bear with me for a second, his stand ability is odd. It enables him to access at any time to any number of alternate worlds, universes, and dimensions, where if desired, he may swap bodies with his counterparts, granting him pseudo-immortality. I don't really know how else to explain this in like an easier to understand way, but like basically he can just like swap himself or other people from alternate worlds, and it makes him really hard to kill because you can get him down to like 1 HP and he's like, oh, let me bring in a full health Funny Valentine and swap places with him. Give me that power. Listen, reading the manga, this show is so confusing. I'm very curious to see how they animate this and if it comes across any differently. Yep. Oof. Anyway, his ability does require him to get caught between two objects, for example, a flag and the ground, or a sofa and the wall type of thing. This limits his ability, but not by much since he has gotten caught between water and the bottom of the ocean as a method of using his ability before, so like, creativity. A lot of JoJo stands rely less on power and more of creativity of the user, and I think that's awesome. It does make it hard to keep up with though. On the other side, we've got Diego Brando, which is literally just a redesign and reuse of Dio, because Araki loves him. Diego is basically just a genius British jockey hailed from one of the best contenders in the steel ball race, but he soon shifts his attention to the Saint Corps as well. Diego becomes a powerful, intermittent rival to both Gyro and Johnny. Although he works with the different factions during the course of the race, Diego is only loyal to himself. So Diego kind of starts off doing his own thing, then he starts working for Funny Valentine, but then he eventually turns against Funny Valentine. Everyone in Part 7 is just chaotic neutral. They're just out for themselves. Which, you know what? Fair for them. Fair for them. Let's see. He also has a tragic backstory. And oh yeah, he does eventually get the ability to turn into a dinosaur. He, along with some villagers in a village the race ends up going through, gets controlled by a Dr. Ferdinand in order to steal the left eye of the Saint Corpse from Johnny and Gyro after they get that. After Ferdinand was defeated, though, Diego stole the corpse part and fused it with his left eye, allowing him to retain the ability to turn himself into a dinosaur. What is that called? I think it's called Scary Monsters. Either the ability was called Scary Monsters or it was the chapter. Anyway, that's his ability. He's a dinosaur boy. In part 7, basically just race across the US and try to get the corpse parts. There's another character that I don't have in this. Her name is Lucy. She's a child. She's married to the organizer of the Steel Ball Run race, and she gets wrapped up with Funny Valentine, and it gets really weird. I'm not going to spoil a whole lot, but I will say part 7 gets really weird, and they do her so dirty, and she eventually becomes, like, pregnant in a, in kind of in the sense that, like, the Virgin Mary got pregnant with Christ, and she births the whole corpse thing. It's really weird and odd, but this is JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, so what do you expect? Theft. Theft is what it's called. I mean, yeah, you're right. Okay. Part 8, the final part to date, is JoJo Leon. I'm gonna be honest, I have not read this part yet. But it begins in 2011, and this is also in the same timeline as part 7, so we're completely divorced from the first 6 parts. The Holy Corpse birth thing, it makes sense. Yeah, it does make sense. It's just like, it comes out of nowhere, or at least I thought it did when I read it, and like, it was just visually very bizarre. And it was just very... Lucy's character, she's a good character, but she gets used in a lot of uncomfortable ways sometimes, and it's just really weird. Anyway, we've got Josuke Higashikata, not to be confused with the one from part 4. A young man afflicted by retrograde amnesia in his search to uncover his identity in Morio. It's also set in Morio. They actually show the birth. I don't remember, but it was just weird. I don't think they showed the birth, but it was just like the way he drew her with like the stomach and just like, it was just weird. A lot of people have lots of things to say about Lucy's treatment in the series. Anyway, hello? So Josuke part 8 got amnesia, and he also lives in Morio. And this is set in 2011, so the town has been affected by the Tohoku earthquake. I don't know if that was a real earthquake that actually happened, or if it's a fictional earthquake. However, he ends up digging around, and he pulls him and his adoptive family into the unfinished business between his previous life and an impending inhuman threat. Now, the only thing I know about JoJo Leon is that this man canonically has 4 balls. He's doubled up on testicles here. That's all I know about him. It's a real earthquake? Oh, that's so interesting. When you were 11. Oh, wow. Yikes. I've never been through an earthquake, but that shit's terrifying. But I'm glad you obviously made it out of that well and alive. That's rough. Yikes. But that's so interesting that he used a real earthquake to... Because I know the manga started in the 80s, and it kept going. And I know, like, part 6 came out in, like, the very early 2000s, and part 7 took, like, 10 years, and part 8 took, like, 10 years. So, yeah, I guess part 8 would have started around, like, shortly after that earthquake. So that's so interesting. The ball thing would be very uncomfortable. I don't know. I haven't read part 8 yet, so I don't know how he takes it. But this is his stand, soft and wet. My mom saw this picture and she thought it was supposed to be a woman and she was gonna have a lot to say, and I was like, that's actually not a woman. Araki sexualizes everyone. He actually sexualizes men more than he sexualizes women, to be honest. It was a really, really bad earthquake, so I'm curious how they handle it in the manga. I am too. I want to read it. I don't know why I haven't yet. I think I was waiting for it to be in color because I have a hard time keeping up with the manga when it's not in color, and I got used to reading part 6 and part 7 in color. I don't know. I should read part 8 though. It looks really good. But what I determined to be the enemy is the Lokaka organization. I just like the way this page is laid out, to be honest. We're just gonna breeze through this. She's a woman, and I love her. I know nothing about her, but she's very pretty. Her name is Yasuo, and her stand name is Paisley Park, and it's so cute, and I love her, and she's friends with Josuke, and I think she's actually a love interest too, and like, good for her. I don't really know why this guy's important, but I thought he was when I made this book. His name is Rai Mamizuku? Rai Mamizuku. He gives me Mista energy, which is probably why I put him here. His stand name is Doggy Style. I'm curious to see how he's important. But that wraps it up. That's my presentation. This is 52 pages. I had to make like a 50-page book thing for, why is it so zoomed in? For a college class, and this is what I did. This is what I did. I did not realize it was going to take so long to go through. My bad. I think I'm the only one in the I think I'm the only one in the Discord call now. Oof. Alright, we can leave that. Yeah. You guys are now all caught up on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Kind of. So we can start playing Eyes of Heaven at some point. I did this presentation so we could play that game. But literally the next stream will be in October. And I think Eyes of Heaven is not a Halloween game, so we'll probably wait until November to play it. But I love that game, and I want to replay it with you guys, because I think it'll be a lot of fun. But anyway, that's JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. That's what I've been brain rotting over for the last, I don't know, 3-ish years of my life. I've got problems. But thank you guys so much for hanging out. I think that about wraps it up here. That's all of our presentations. I don't know if we're gonna do something like this again. I had fun. My friends had fun. And we're talking about like, oh, next time we want to do this. So either it'll be on my channel or someone else's. Once the newest things on Netflix are in English, I'll catch Gizmo. They already are. Part 6. Oh, wait, Canada might be different. But I do know that, for a while, JoJo's Part 5 was not on Netflix, but when they got the rights for Part 6, they put Part 5 up, and Part 6 is airing on Netflix, so it's kind of in Netflix jail, where we're getting batch episodes, and the first 2 batches are already out, so we're like halfway through Part 6, and you can be fully caught up on the anime right now. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be different in Canada, because Netflix is like the global distributor for JoJo's right now. Which is, you know, I'm glad I can watch it. I just don't like the Netflix model, even though I binge it all anyway. But you should definitely catch up on Part 6. It's so good. It's not my favorite, but I love it so much. Anyway, invite me, of course. Whelmed, you are always invited. I also think it'd be funny. So I know Whelmed, I kind of stole this idea from Whelmed because she had a PowerPoint presentation stream, but it was her and a few of our other friends presenting characters that they simped for, and I did make a presentation after I watched that stream, but I don't know if I want to air all that out on my own stream. I'll do it on other people's streams. It hits different. But I know we've all got like a bunch of different fun PowerPoint things we would like to do in the future. Anyway, I think that's a good place. I need the full list. I think I sent it in the Discord server, the like mutual one. Maybe it got sent in a Discord server that we're all in. But I can always link it again because I don't remember where it was, and it was also a while ago. Everyone else's were so tame. Literally, they were laughing at me. Mine like has some tame things on it, but then it gets very odd. But also, Whelmed, I think you and I exist in the same place where we're asexual, so it's not quite the same unbridled horniness that other people's simplest indicate. It's all very theoretical for me. So I feel like yours was probably the same. Like, the same vibes. Are there insane people on your list? Yes. Yeah, it was. I did that night that Kamoka and we hung out in the Discord call with Kamoka till like 4 a.m. my time. Yeah, my list is interesting. Wholeheartedly, Gizmo, you should make one. We should do like Alethea and friends simp list PowerPoint stream, and we'll all just roast each other, and that'd be so much fun. All right, I think that's a good place to wrap up. That was definitely an info dump on JoJo's. I did not realize it was going to take that long, but again, we summarized the entirety, aside from part 8. But most people don't know part 8, myself included. Yes, that'd be great. We'll have to talk about it. We'll have to get something set up. Because I know, like, Kay and Kamoka and Whelmed already have their PowerPoints done. And I feel like that's one of those PowerPoints that a lot of people make for fun, because they are funny to make. Let's see. I think Doc is live. If you guys want to see some Minecraft, I'm going to send you guys over to Doc. I had fun. I don't know if this was fun for people who don't know JoJo's. That was kind of the majority of the stream. But I will see you guys on Saturday with a fun, spooky Bones SMP stream. We're going to be moving a warden with Doc, and it's going to be something. Wardens are scary. And we're going to move one across the map into a scary building. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. If you guys have a good rest of your night, and I will see you all on Saturday, our usual time. Good night.